He was a millionaire but almost lost everything because he didn't have a translator. Until a simple cleaning lady spoke French and 9 other languages better than any executive. He fell head over heels for her, but there was something dark in her past. If you love love stories and romance, watch until the end, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. Stay tuned. Robert Blake always believed that power meant absolute control over all the variables in life. At 48, owner of one of the largest investment holdings in North America, his schedule was meticulously timed, his contracts bulletproof, and his image carefully crafted to convey coldness, competence, and untouchability. From the 30th floor of his corporate building in Chicago, he watched the city move like pieces on a chessboard that he controlled. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happened without his permission. His routine was unchangeable. He arrived at the office at 6 in the morning, when few traces of Chicago's night still remained. He enjoyed the silence that preceded the urban chaos, the empty corridors that would soon bustle with executives anxious for his approval. In those moments, he felt like an emperor inspecting his kingdom before the daily battle. But something had begun to bother him in recent months, an almost imperceptible presence, a shadow that moved around the corners of his office even before he arrived. Lucy, the newly hired cleaning lady, arrived even earlier than he did. When Robert entered his office, she was already there, silent, as a ghost, cleaning the panoramic windows with precise and delicate movements. He had never paid attention to cleaning staff. To him, they were part of the infrastructure, like the air conditioning or lighting. But Lucy was different. There was something about her gestures that intrigued him without his knowing why. She didn't startle when he entered, didn't submissively lower her eyes like the others. She simply continued her work, humming melodies that seemed to come from another world, other cultures, other lives. One morning, Robert arrived earlier than usual. He found Lucy organizing books on his personal bookshelf and noticed that she was holding a copy of Garcia Marquez in Spanish. It wasn't just any edition, but a first Colombian edition that he had bought at auction. He saw her leafing through the pages with the care of someone who knew the value of those words, not just financially, but literarily. "You read Spanish?" he asked, surprised by his own interest. Lucy wasn't startled. She closed the book gently and placed it back on the shelf. 100 years of solitude, she said, with an almost imperceptible smile. Garcia Marquez was right when he said that life is not what one lived, but what one remembers, and how one remembers it in order to recount it. Robert was paralyzed, not just by the answer, but by the way she pronounced the words. There was a musicality in her voice, a cadence that revealed genuine familiarity with that language, with that literature. It wasn't superficial knowledge of someone who had learned Spanish in a night course. It was the fluency of someone who had lived, breathed, dreamed in that language. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blake," she said, returning to a respectful tone. "I shouldn't have touched your books." "No," he replied, still processing what he had just heard. "Feel free. How many languages do you speak?" Lucy hesitated, as if the question led her to dangerous territories. "A few," she answered, evasively, picking up the cleaning cloth again. Robert wanted to insist, but something in her look made him step back. There was pain there, a deep sadness that he recognized because he carried it too, for different reasons. He spent the rest of the morning thinking about that encounter, the way she had quoted Garcia Marquez from memory, the melancholy that tinged her voice when speaking about memories. In the following days, he began to pay more attention. Lucy wasn't just a cleaning lady. Her movements were too elegant, her posture revealed refined education, and there was an entire library in her gaze. When she cleaned his desk, he noticed that she organized the papers with a precision that went beyond professional care. She seemed to understand the importance of each document, the hierarchy of information. A week later, Robert would face the Monday that would change everything. But he didn't yet know that this mysterious woman, who hummed indigenous songs while cleaning windows, would be his salvation and his downfall. He still couldn't imagine that behind that navy blue uniform hid someone capable of speaking the language of numbers in Arabic, translating contracts in Mandarin, or reciting poetry in ancient Navajo. Robert Blake believed he controlled all the variables in life, but some variables, he would soon discover, were simply uncontrollable. And it was exactly those that could completely destroy or rebuild a man. It was a cloudy Monday morning when the impossible happened. French investors were waiting in the panoramic meeting room to sign the contract that would consolidate Robert's brand in the European market. 8 months of negotiations, dozens of video conferences, a complex diplomatic dance between different cultures and currencies. Everything would culminate in those 4 hours that would define the future of his company. Robert had checked every detail 3 times. The contracts translated, stamped, reviewed. The official translator, Marc Dubois, confirmed weeks ago. The French champagne already chilled, the canapés prepared. Even the flowers chosen followed Parisian business etiquette protocol. But at 7:30 in the morning, when he should already be at the office, Marc called with a choked voice. "Monsieur. Plague mon père, my father had a heart attack. I'm at the hospital, I can't leave here." Robert felt his stomach contract. "Marc, do you have someone who can replace you? Someone you trust? I tried all my colleagues, but it's Monday, some are traveling, others have other commitments, I can try to reschedule." "No," Robert almost shouted. "They flew in from Paris especially for today. Rescheduling would be an insult, a display of amateurism." He hung up the phone and began frantically calling translation agencies. All had interpreters available, but none could arrive in time. Chicago traffic was chaotic due to a demonstration downtown. 2 monumental traffic jams blocked the main access routes to the business center. At 8:15, the French arrived. Monsieur Fontaine, the delegation leader, was a 70-year-old man who spoke only French out of pure cultural pride. His associates knew English, but negotiations needed to be conducted in the boss's preferred language. Robert tried to buy time by offering coffee, showing the view of the city, but he noticed the growing impatience in the visitors' looks. "Où est l'interprète?" asked Fontaine, checking his watch. "Il arrive bientôt," Robert lied, sweating. "Quelques minutes." 15 minutes passed, then 30. Robert felt for the first time in years that sensation he had sworn never to experience again. The fear of failure, the terror of losing everything. It wasn't just a contract, it was entry into the European market, the consolidation of years of work, the proof that an American could compete with the major global players. That's when he heard a soft, clear voice with an almost ethereal timbre, saying in perfect French, "Pardonnez-moi, monsieur. Puis-je vous aider?" Robert turned, confused. It was Lucy, the cleaning lady, standing at the meeting room door. She wore her usual navy blue uniform, disposable gloves on her hands, hair tied in a tight bun. Until that moment, she had been invisible. To his eyes, a silent figure who collected papers and cleaned windows before the workday began. "Lucy, not now," he began. "You need an interpreter," she said, still in French, now addressing Fontaine directly. "I have a degree in linguistics and I can help you." Fontaine raised his eyebrows, surprised. He replied in rapid French, full of Parisian slang and expressions that Robert couldn't follow. Lucy responded at the same speed, with the same naturalness, and Robert saw the Frenchman's face light up. "This young lady has excellent pronunciation," said Fontaine, turning to Robert. "Where did she learn our language?" Robert looked at Lucy, lost. She translated the question and added, "Tell him I studied at the Sorbonne. He'll be impressed." "You studied at the Sorbonne?" whispered Robert. "Not exactly, but he doesn't need to know all the details right now. Do you trust me?" Robert hesitated for a second. He looked at the French, who were beginning to murmur among themselves, clearly irritated by the delay. He looked at Lucy, her eyes calm and determined. He had no choice. "Do it," he said. What happened in the next 3 hours defied everything Robert believed he knew about translation, about business, about the woman who cleaned his office every morning. Lucy didn't just translate words. She captured intentions, interpreted silences, explained American cultural contexts that made the French laugh and feel at ease. When Fontaine made a joke about Americans being relaxed with punctuality, she responded with an anecdote about the difference between chronological time and psychological time, quoting Bergson from memory. "Vous connaissez Bergson?" asked Fontaine. "I'm pressed, naturellement. Il faut agir en homme de pensée et penser en homme d'action, replied Lucy, smiling. Robert watched everything as if witnessing magic happen. He didn't understand half of what was being said, but he realized that something extraordinary was happening. At the end of the meeting, the contracts were signed with smiles and warm handshakes. Fontaine even kissed Lucy's hand, calling her Petite Merveille. When the French left, Robert was alone with Lucy in the meeting room. The silence was dense, loaded with questions he didn't know how to ask. She started collecting the coffee, cups, returning to her role as a cleaning employee, but something had irrevocably changed between them. "Who are you?" asked Robert, his voice still trembling from the adrenaline of what he had just witnessed. Lucy stopped arranging the cups. "I'm the cleaning lady who saved your meeting." "Don't joke with me," Robert approached, feeling a mixture of gratitude and distrust. "You quoted Bergson from memory, talked about psychological time as if you were a university professor, and that Frenchman called you a little marvel. You're not a simple cleaning lady." Lucy sighed, finally facing him. "I've been many things, Mr. Blake. Teacher, translator, diplomatic interpreter. But today I'm just a woman who cleans offices and needs this job." "Why is a woman with your education working as a cleaning lady?" "Because sometimes life breaks us in ways we can't fix." There was deep pain in her voice. "And when that happens, we start over from scratch, even if it means cleaning floors." Robert felt a tightness in his chest. He recognized that pain because he carried it too. "You saved me today. Let me repay you. I can offer you a better position. In translation, international relation." "No." The answer was firm, almost harsh. "I don't want favors. I don't want anyone to feel indebted to me." "It's not a favor. It's recognition of competence." Lucy laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "Competence? Mr. Blake, you know nothing about me, about what I've done, about why I'm here. If you knew, you wouldn't be offering a job. You'd be sending me away." "Then tell me." "No." Robert was frustrated. There was something about this woman that both fascinated and irritated him. Her intelligence was obvious, her culture impressive, but she hid behind uniforms and silences like someone running from something. In the following days, Robert began to investigate discreetly. He discovered that Lucy Regina Carter had been one of the most respected linguists in the country. Daughter of missionaries who worked in Native American reservations, she grew up speaking English, Spanish, and 3 native dialects. She had studied at public universities, secured scholarships abroad, worked for international organizations in Africa and the Middle East. But 4 years ago, something had happened. Her name had disappeared from academic circles. Her publications were discontinued and she had vanished from the professional map. Robert tried to discover what, but hit walls of silence. Her former colleagues changed the subject. Ex-professors only said that there was a problem without giving details. The mystery only increased his obsession. He started arriving earlier and earlier at the office, just to hear Lucy humming while she worked. They were Native American songs, African melodies, sometimes lullabies in Arabic. Each song seemed to tell a different story of her life, as if she were a walking musical library. "You grew up on Indian reservations?" he asked one morning, trying to sound casual. "Yes." Lucy didn't stop cleaning the windows. "My parents were missionary linguists. We spent years among the Navajo, the Apache, the Cherokee. I learned that each language carries a different way of seeing the world." "And then?" "Then I discovered that the world out there isn't as generous as the reservations. That knowledge can be a weapon, and that we can't always control who uses it." Robert realized she was talking about what had made her disappear from the academic world. "Lucy, if someone hurt you, if you need help." "I don't need salvation, Mr. Blake." She finally stopped cleaning and faced him. "I need peace. And peace is something that men like you can't give. Men like me. Powerful men. Men who believe that everything can be bought, controlled, negotiated. Men who see women like me and think we're recovery projects." Robert felt as if she had read his thoughts. "You're being unfair." "I'm being realistic." Lucy went back to work. "You see me as a mystery to be deciphered, an interesting woman who appeared in your monotonous life. But I'm not entertainment. Mr. Blake, I'm a person who made mistakes, paid for them, and now tries to live in silence." "What kind of mistakes?" Lucy stopped again, and Robert saw tears forming in her eyes. "This kind you don't forgive. The kind that destroys not just our life, but the lives of innocent people." At that moment, Robert knew he was lost. It wasn't just curiosity or physical attraction. It was something deeper, more dangerous. He was falling in love with a woman who carried secrets that could destroy them both. And for the first time in his life, he didn't care about the consequences. The problem was that Robert already had a planned life, an arranged engagement, a future drawn up in the contracts he had signed. Anne-Louise Fontaine, daughter of the French investor, had been his fiancée for 6 months, a marriage of convenience that would unite two business powers on 2 continents. He had never loved Anne-Louise, but he had always known that love was a luxury that men like him couldn't afford. Until he met Lucy. Until he discovered that some women could make a man question everything he had built in a lifetime. 3 weeks after the episode with the French, Robert received a proposal that would change everything again. An Arab consortium wanted to invest in infrastructure projects in the United States, but the contracts were in classical Arabic, a variant of the language that not all translators mastered. His official Arabic translator was sick, and Robert urgently needed someone. That's when he remembered Lucy humming a lullaby in Arabic. It was a risky bet, but he could no longer make decisions without thinking of her. He found her in the hallway, pushing the cleaning cart. "Lucy, I need you again." She stopped, her look immediately defensive. "Mr. Blake, we've already talked about this. I don't want to get involved in your business." "They're contracts in classical Arabic. No one else can translate them in time." Robert saw something change in her face. A shadow of fear passed through her eyes. "Classical Arabic?" "Yes. Do you know it?" Lucy was silent for a long moment. "What kind of contracts?" "Infrastructure investments, roads, bridges, ports. Who are the investors?" "A consortium from the Persian Gulf." "Why these questions?" Lucy started walking, pushing the cart, but Robert noticed that her hands were trembling. "I can't help you this time." "Why?" "Because—" She stopped in the middle of the hallway. "Because I might know these investors, and if I know them, my presence could complicate everything." "You worked in the Middle East?" "I worked." Her voice was just a whisper, and it didn't end well. Robert felt he was getting to the heart of the mystery she carried. "Lucy, what happened there?" "I was young and naive. I believed that my linguistic competence would protect me from anything, that being good at what I did was enough." She leaned her hands on the cart, as if she needed support. "I worked as a private interpreter for an Arab magnate, Khalil al-Rashid. He was charismatic, intelligent, very rich, and I was a 28-year-old American, impressed by palaces and private jets." "You fell in love with him?" "I thought so. He was kind, respectful, treated me like a queen. But then I discovered that I wasn't his passion, I was his strategy." Lucy started walking again, more slowly. "He used me to translate contracts that I didn't know were illegal. Deals with weapons, money laundering, corruption of African governments. I translated everything, signed as a linguistic witness, without understanding that I was being used." "And when did you find out?" "I found out in the worst possible way. International authorities raided a meeting I was translating. They found evidence that I was complicit. Khalil disappeared, left me behind as a scapegoat." Robert felt a deaf anger grow in his chest. "He abandoned you?" "Worse. He planted false evidence suggesting that I was a corporate spy, that I was selling information to competitors. My career was destroyed in a week. Universities cancelled my contracts. International organizations blacklisted me. Colleagues began to avoid me." "And you came back to the United States?" "I fled to the United States, changed my name, my identity, my life. Lucy Regina Carter is who I became after Lucy al-Rashid died." Robert stopped walking. "Al-Rashid? You used his name?" "I was married to him, officially to facilitate my work in Arab countries, but the marriage was just a work contract, at least for him." "Lucy." Robert extended his hand, but she stepped away. Now you understand why I can't help you with Arabic contracts. If any of these investors has a connection to Khalil, if my name appears on any document, everything could fall apart again. Nothing will happen. I'll protect you. Lucy laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Mr. Blake, you don't understand the power of these people. They buy governments, bribe judges, make people disappear. You may be powerful in America, but against them, you're just another businessman who can be discarded. Then help me understand the contracts, at least so I know if they're legitimate. No, Lucy, please. No, she turned to him, her eyes shining with tears and anger. You don't understand. I can't get involved with that world anymore. I can't be complicit in anything anymore, even if it's innocent. I've already paid too high a price. At that moment, Robert saw all the weight she carried. It wasn't just guilt or regret. It was terror. Terror that the past would return and destroy. Not just her, but anyone who came close. Are you afraid of me too? He asked softly. I'm afraid of powerful men, Mr. Blake. I learned that they always want something and usually don't care who they hurt to get it. I'm not like him. No, Lucy faced him. Aren't you engaged to a rich French woman to strengthen your European business? Aren't you using that engagement as a business strategy? Robert was left without a response. She was right. His engagement to Anne-Louise was exactly that, a business strategy, but somehow this seemed different, cleaner, more honest in its dishonesty. It's different, he said finally. Is it? Lucy picked up a folder of Arabic contracts that was on the cart. Then prove it. Translate these contracts by yourself. You don't need me. She placed the folder in his hands and walked away, leaving Robert alone in the hallway, holding documents that could be worth millions or hide crimes. And for the first time, he realized that perhaps he wasn't so different from the other powerful men who had hurt Lucy. Robert spent 3 days trying to decipher the Arabic contracts with translation software and online consultants. The more he read, the more restless he became. There were technical terms that didn't make sense, clauses that seemed to hide other meanings, references to companies he couldn't identify. He needed Lucy, but he didn't know how to approach her. After the conversation in the hallway, that's when he decided to change strategy. Instead of seeking her out as a boss, he decided to seek her out as a man. He waited for her to leave the building at the end of the day and followed her discreetly. Lucy lived in a small apartment in Wicker Park, a bohemian neighborhood that contrasted with the corporate coldness of the financial center. When she realized she was being followed, she stopped in front of a bookstore. Mr. Blake, this is harassment. It's desperation, Robert approached. I can't translate the contracts alone. Find another translator. I don't trust another translator. I trust you. Lucy laughed, but there was sadness in the sound. You don't know me well enough to trust me. Then give me a chance to get to know you. Why? Robert hesitated. He couldn't say he was falling in love with her. He couldn't admit that he thought about her all the time, that he arrived early at the office just to hear her voice. Because you're the most intelligent person I've ever met, and because I think you need someone who believes in you. I don't need anyone. We all need someone. Lucy studied him for a long moment. You're engaged, Mr. Blake. Your fiancée is the daughter of one of the most powerful men in France. Why are you here, following me down the street? Because my engagement has nothing to do with love. And you think that impresses me? That it justifies anything? Robert realized he was being an idiot. You're right. I should be at home planning my wedding, taking care of my business, but I can't stop thinking about you. Thoughts aren't actions, Mr. Blake. No? Robert moved closer. Then why are you here talking to me instead of going inside and ignoring me? Lucy didn't answer, but Robert saw that she was fighting against something. Do you want to see the contracts? She finally asked. Yes. Then let's go to my apartment. But you need to understand that this doesn't change anything between us. I'm just a temporary consultant. Lucy's apartment was small but revealed a lot about who she really was. Shelves full of books in various languages, Native American crafts on the walls, photographs of African villages and Asian temples. It was like entering a personal museum of a life intensely lived. "You've traveled a lot," observed Robert. "I've lived a lot. Maybe too much." Lucy served strong coffee and sat at the table with the contracts. "Let's see what your Arab friends are up to." Robert watched her work. Her hands moved over the documents with familiarity. Her eyes captured nuances that he didn't even notice. But as she read, her face became increasingly serious. "These contracts are legitimate," she said finally. "Real investments in infrastructure. But there's a clause that concerns me." "Which one?" "They want total exclusivity, not just for these projects, but for any future business in the United States. And there's a cancellation penalty that could break your company." "Why does that worry you?" Lucy hesitated. "Because it's exactly the type of contract that Khalil used. He initially offered a lot of money, but then completely controlled the partner. It was an elegant way of buying people." "You think they want to buy me?" "I don't know, but I think you should investigate better who these people are before signing anything." Robert was silent, processing the information. "Would you do that for me, the investigation?" "I can't. It would be too dangerous. For you or for me?" "For both of us." Lucy got up and went to the window. "Mr. Blake, you don't understand the world you're entering. These men don't do business. They wage war. And the victims are always the closest. People. Were you a victim? I was a weapon. It's worse." She turned to him. "I translated contracts that financed civil wars in Africa. I interpreted meetings where the fate of thousands was decided. I helped powerful men steal natural resources from poor countries. All because I was too good at what I did and too naive to understand the consequences." Robert approached her. "You didn't know. Ignorance isn't an excuse, not when you have the power to understand, to question, to refuse." "And now?" "Now, I try to live with the weight of what I did. I clean offices, translate legitimate contracts, keep myself away from anything that could turn me into a weapon again." Robert was so close that he could feel the heat of her body, the soft perfume of her skin. "Lucy, you need to leave." Her voice was just a whisper. "I don't want to. Your fiancé must be waiting." "My fiancé is in Paris, taking care of her father's business, and even if she were here, it wouldn't change anything." "It would change everything." Lucy moved away. "You're a committed man. I'm a woman who carries dangerous secrets. There's no possible future for us. And if I end the engagement?" "You won't end it. There's too much money at stake." Robert took the Arabic contracts and tore them up in front of her. "There. I just tore up millions of dollars. Money isn't everything." Lucy was shocked. "Are you crazy? It represented becoming just another powerful man you've learned to fear. I'd rather be a man you can respect." At that moment, something broke between them. Robert saw tears in her eyes and knew it wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper, more dangerous. It was the same thing he was feeling. "I can't fall in love with you," she said. "Too late," he replied. "I've already fallen in love." The kiss happened like an inevitable storm. Robert touched Lucy's face with the delicacy of someone holding something fragile and precious, and she didn't pull away. Their mouths met with an urgency that mixed desire and despair, as if both knew that this moment might be the only one they would have. When they separated, Lucy was crying. "This can't happen," she whispered, but didn't move from his arms. "It already has," replied Robert, kissing her tears. "It already happened the first day I saw you quoting Garcia Marquez. It already happened when you saved my meeting and refused any reward. It already happened when I discovered that you carry the whole world in your heart." "You don't understand." Lucy moved away, wiping her face with her hands. "I destroy everything I touch. All the men who came close to me ended up hurt. Maybe because you never allowed yourself to be truly loved. Or because love isn't enough when you carry the kind of baggage I carry." Robert pulled her back into his arms. "Then let me carry it with you." That night, They made love with the intensity of those who know they are living something forbidden and precious. In Lucy's body, Robert found a woman who had been broken and reconstituted so many times that her scars told stories from 3 continents. And Lucy, in Robert's arms, rediscovered what it was to be touched with tenderness, not with possessiveness. In the following weeks, they lived a clandestine love. Robert arrived at the office even earlier, and Lucy invented excuses to stay later. They talked about literature, about travels, about the mistakes they both had made. She taught him words in Navajo, and he showed her how to read financial statements. It was as if they were building their own language, an idiom that only the 2 of them understood. But Anne-Louise was returning from Paris. "I need to tell her everything," said Robert one morning, after making love to Lucy in his office. "I can't pretend anymore that I'm a man I'm not." "Are you crazy?" Lucy dressed quickly. "She's Fontaine's daughter, your biggest investor. If you end the engagement, he could withdraw all the money from the company." "I'll manage." "Robert, you don't understand. Men like Fontaine don't accept humiliations. He will make a point of destroying you publicly." "Then let him destroy me. I'm not going to marry a woman I don't love to protect business." Lucy kissed him desperately. "You'll regret it." "I only regret not having found you sooner." 3 days later, Anne-Louise arrived from Paris. She was an elegant, cold woman who treated the engagement as a business contract. Robert tried to talk to her in private, but she was always accompanied by assistants, consultants, or on the phone with her father. It was during a business dinner that everything fell apart. Robert had invited some investors to meet Anne-Louise. It was a formal dinner at the most exclusive restaurant in Chicago. Lucy was there, serving as a translator for a couple of Japanese investors. Robert tried not to look at her, but it was impossible. Her every movement hypnotized him. Anne-Louise noticed. "Qui est cette femme?" she asked in French, following Robert's gaze. "Une traductrice," replied Robert, trying to sound casual. "Elle te regarde beaucoup. Tu imagines des choses." But Anne-Louise wasn't imagining things. She had grown up among powerful men, had learned to read subtle signs to perceive when someone was lying, and Robert was lying very badly. During dinner, Anne-Louise observed every look exchanged between Robert and Lucy. She saw how he leaned slightly when she spoke, how he smiled when she translated something funny, how he tensed when other men talked to her. "You're in love with her," said Anne-Louise when they were alone. Robert couldn't deny it. "Yes." "How long?" "Since I met her." Anne-Louise laughed, but it was an icy laugh. "You're an idiot, Robert. Do you know who this woman is?" "I know who she is." "No, you don't." Anne-Louise took out her phone and showed a photo. "Her name is Lucy al-Rashid. She's the widow of Khalil al-Rashid, one of the most dangerous men in the Middle East. She's on Interpol's wanted list." Robert went pale. "That's a lie." "It's the truth. My father knows her story. She was complicit in crimes against humanity, financing terrorism, money laundering, arms trafficking. When Khalil died, she fled with millions of dollars." "Khalil died?" She said he abandoned her. "He died in a car accident in Morocco, very convenient." Anne-Louise put away her phone. "You're being used, Robert. She approached you because she knows you have international connections. She wants to use your company to launder the money she stole." Robert felt the world spinning. "You're making this up." "I'm protecting you, and protecting my family's business." Anne-Louise stood up. "You will choose, Robert. Either you marry me and forget this criminal, or I tell my father everything and he destroys you. That's blackmail. That's reality. You have until tomorrow to decide." That night, Robert sought out Lucy in her apartment. She was packing. "You already know," she said without looking at him. "Anne-Louise told me that Khalil died, that you fled with his money." "It's true." Lucy stopped packing. "He died. I took the money and ran." "Why?" "Because I discovered that he had a secret account with $50 million that belonged to African families he had robbed. I took the money and returned it to the correct humanitarian organizations." Robert felt relief. "You returned it?" "Every penny. I have all the receipts." Lucy grabbed a folder. But that doesn't change anything. I'm an international fugitive. Being with me is dangerous. I don't care. You should care. Anne-Louise is right. I will destroy you. Lucy, I love you. And I love you too. That's why I'm leaving. Robert tried to prevent Lucy from leaving, but she had already disappeared when he woke up. She left only a note. Some battles can't be won with love. You deserve a life without scars. Thank you for showing me that there are still good men in the world. The following days were hell. Robert couldn't work, couldn't sleep, couldn't pretend he cared about meetings or contracts. Anne-Louise set the wedding date for 2 months from then, and he didn't have the strength to protest. He felt like a man dead inside, just going through automatic movements. It was during a meeting with German investors that he received a call. That would change everything again. The lawyer who handled his international affairs called urgently. Robert, I need to talk to you immediately. Not now, Kevin. I'm in a meeting. It's about Lucy al-Rashid. Robert almost dropped the phone. What about her? Khalil al-Rashid didn't die in an accident. He was murdered, and Lucy is being sought as the main suspect. That's impossible. Interpol has issued an international warrant. She is considered armed and dangerous. Robert hung up the phone with trembling hands. He couldn't believe that. Lucy was capable of killing someone. The woman he had known was incapable of hurting an ant. But then he remembered how she trembled when talking about the past, how she refused to translate Arabic contracts, how she seemed to carry guilt for something greater than simple, poor professional choices. That night, he investigated alone. He discovered that Khalil al-Rashid had been found dead in his car in Morocco, with a lethal dose of poison in his system. Lucy had disappeared the same night, taking only a small suitcase. The authorities found her fingerprints on the cup of tea he had drunk before dying. But something didn't make sense. If Lucy had killed Khalil, why return the money? If she was fleeing, why not disappear with millions of dollars? Robert hired a private investigator to discover more details. What he discovered left him even more confused. Khalil al-Rashid had been found with documents proving that he was planning to sell Lucy to human traffickers. She wasn't just his translator or wife of convenience. She was his property, someone he intended to sell to other criminals when he got tired of her. The investigator also found a security video from the night of Khalil's death. It showed Lucy arriving at his house, but didn't show her leaving. Instead, it showed 3 men entering after her and leaving with her, unconscious in their arms. She didn't kill Khalil, said the investigator. She was kidnapped. Khalil was killed by his own business partners. She was used as a scapegoat. Robert felt a mixture of relief and terror. Where is she now? We don't know, but we have a clue. Money was withdrawn from a bank account in Seattle, Washington. Small amounts, always at times suggesting that someone is hiding. Robert didn't hesitate. He cancelled all meetings, invented an excuse for Anne-Louise, and flew to Seattle. He hired local guides and began looking for Lucy in riverside communities. He knew she had grown up on reservations, that she felt safe away from cities. It took 2 weeks to find clues. A teacher at a rural school said she had seen a woman who matched Lucy's description, teaching children in a village in the interior. But when Robert arrived there, she had already left. She said dangerous men were after her, the tribal chief told him. She taught our children for a few days, then went downriver. She didn't say where she was going. Robert continued searching. He slept in hammocks, ate grilled fish, navigated rivers that seemed to have no end. His skin burned in the Pacific Northwest sun. His hands were hurt from paddling canoes. His feet got used to walking barefoot on the damp earth. For the first time in years, he didn't wear a watch, didn't check emails, didn't think about stocks or contracts. It was in a Navajo reservation that he finally found her. Lucy was sitting on the riverbank, 6 months pregnant, teaching Native American children to write in English. She wore a simple cotton dress, was barefoot, and had her hair loose. She looked like a completely different woman from the elegant translator he had known. When she saw him, she didn't flee. She just closed her eyes and sighed. "You shouldn't have come," she said without looking at him. "You shouldn't have run away," replied Robert, approaching slowly. "I killed a man, Robert." No, you didn't. I know the truth. Lucy finally looked at him. What truth? That Khalil was killed by his business partners, that you were used as a scapegoat, that you returned his money to the victims, not to protect yourself, but to protect the people he had robbed. You investigated. I investigated, and I discovered that you're not a criminal. You're a survivor. Lucy touched her belly. It doesn't matter anymore. Now I have someone more important to protect. Robert looked at her belly and felt his heart race. Is it mine? It's yours. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to stay with me out of obligation, because I didn't want my child to grow up in the same world that almost destroyed me. Robert knelt on the sand of the riverbank. Lucy, I gave up everything. I ended it with Anne-Louise, sold my shares, left my company. I have nothing left beyond what you see. How you did what? I chose you. I chose our family. I chose a real life, not a life of contracts. Lucy began to cry. You don't understand. They're still looking for me. Being found means prison, or worse. Then we'll prove your innocence. How? Robert took an envelope from his pocket. My lawyer got the documents that prove you were kidnapped the night of Khalil's death. He also got the receipts showing that you returned the money, and he got a recording of Khalil talking with partners about plans to sell you. Is that true? It's true. You don't need to hide anymore. Lucy read the documents with trembling hands. They were copies of security recordings, forensic reports, witness statements that proved she had been a victim, not a criminal. For the first time in 4 years, she cried with relief. Can I go back to having a normal life? She asked, still not believing. You can go back to being who you always were, replied Robert, sitting beside her on the riverbank. An extraordinary woman whom the world tried to break, but who refused to be destroyed. And you? Did you really give up everything? Robert laughed. I discovered that everything I worked for wasn't worth anything if I didn't have you to share it with. Power, money, prestige, they're just empty words when you're alone. But what about your company, your employees? I sold my stake to my partners. They're competent, they'll manage everything well, and the sale money was enough for us to live comfortably without the excesses of before. Lucy touched his face. You really did this for me. I did it for us, for our family. Robert placed his hand on her belly. For this baby, who will be born free of all our past mistakes. That night, Robert slept in a hammock in the village. He woke up to the sound of Lucy talking with the Native American children in their own languages. He saw how she moved naturally. Among them, how she taught not just English, but also basic math and hygiene concepts. She was a born educator, someone who had found her true vocation far from palaces and offices. Do you want to stay here? Asked Robert. For a while. I want our child to be born in peace, away from all the confusion that could still happen when we return. Then we'll stay. Won't you regret leaving civilization? Robert looked around. Children ran through the village, men fished in the river, women tended community gardens. There was a simplicity there that he had never experienced. This is civilization, Lucy. What I left behind was just noise. In the following months, Robert learned to live in a completely different way. He helped build a new school, fished to contribute to the community's food, learned basic words in Navajo. His hands, which before only signed contracts, now planted, built, cared. Lucy flourished. Her belly grew, and with it, her confidence. She started to smile genuinely again, started to believe that she deserved to be happy. She taught Robert to identify medicinal plants, to fish with traditional techniques, to listen to the river and understand its changes. You're a different woman here, said Robert one night as they watched the stars. I'm the woman I always wanted to be. Free, useful, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not for what I can do for them. And me? You're the man I've been waiting to find my whole life. Someone capable of giving up everything for love. But the outside world hadn't forgotten them. 3 months later, while Lucy was 8 months pregnant, a man in a suit arrived at the village, completely out of place in the Native American environment. Mr. Blake, he asked in English with a foreign accent. Robert stood up, immediately alert. Who wants to know? My name is Hassan al-Mahdi. I represent the al-Rashid family. We need to talk. Lucy, who was teaching children nearby, turned pale upon hearing the name. Robert positioned himself between her and the man. We have nothing to talk about, said Robert. On the contrary, we have much to talk about Khalil's death, about the money that disappeared, about the woman you're hiding here. Lucy isn't hiding. She's free of all charges. Hassan smiled, but there was no warmth in the smile. Perhaps from legal charges, but not from family justice. Khalil was my nephew. His death needs to be avenged. She didn't kill Khalil. Doesn't matter who killed him. What matters is who will pay. Robert felt anger rising in his chest. Are you threatening my family? I'm offering an opportunity. Khalil left a debt. $50 million that disappeared the night of his death. We want that money back. Lucy returned the money to Khalil's victims. She returned it to strangers. We are family. We have more rights. Lucy approached, even with Robert trying to protect her. Hassan, that money never belonged to Khalil. He stole it from African families, from humanitarian organizations, from governments. Returning it was the only right thing to do. You had no right to decide that. I had the right to repair the damage I helped cause. Hassan studied Lucy for a long moment. You're pregnant. Yes. Whose is it? That's none of your business. If it's Khalil's, it is my business. It would be my grandnephew. Robert stepped forward. It's not Khalil's child, it's my child. Hassan smiled again. Prove it. I don't need to prove anything to you. You do if you want me to leave and let you live in peace. Lucy took Robert's hand. Do the test. When the baby is born, do the test. Prove it's not Khalil's. And if I prove it, then you're free. We'll never bother you again. And if I don't prove it, then the child comes with me. It's an al-Rashid, and al-Rashids grow up with family. Robert felt like hitting the man, but Lucy held him back. All right, she said. When the baby is born, we'll do the test. Hassan nodded. I'll be back in a month. After he left, Robert hugged Lucy. Are you sure the baby is mine? I'm absolutely sure. Khalil never touched me. Our marriage was only on paper. Then why are you worried? Because men like Hassan don't accept no for an answer. Even if the test proves the baby isn't Khalil's, he'll find another excuse to pursue us. So what do we do? We run, once more. No. Robert held her firmly. We don't run anymore. This time we face it. 2 weeks later, Lucy went into labor during a Pacific Northwest storm. The river was agitated, winds were knocking down branches, and there was no possibility of reaching a hospital. The village midwife, a wise woman named Sarah, took care of the birth with the help of other women from the community. Robert held Lucy's hand during the long hours of pain. She was strong, stronger than he had imagined, but even so he suffered with each contraction, with each moan of suffering. When he finally heard the baby's first cry, he felt as if the whole world had been reborn. It's a girl, announced Sarah, placing the child in Lucy's arms. Robert looked at his daughter and felt his heart explode with love. She was small, perfect, with Lucy's dark eyes and his determined chin. She had dark, curly hair, skin that mixed the two heritages, and when she opened her eyes, she seemed to be studying the new world with intense curiosity. What shall we call her? Asked Robert. Hope, replied Lucy without hesitation. Hope Regina Blake. Hope, because she represents everything I thought I had lost. The hope of a normal life, of a family, of being loved for who I am. Robert kissed his daughter's forehead. Hope Regina Blake, welcome to the world, little one. But the peace lasted only briefly. 3 days after the birth, Hassan returned, this time accompanied by 2 armed men. The entire village became tense. The Native Americans didn't have firearms, only bows and arrows that would be useless against revolvers. I've come to claim what's mine, said Hassan, approaching the hut where Lucy was resting with the baby. You won't touch my daughter, said Robert, blocking the entrance. Your daughter? We still don't have proof of that. Then let's do the test right now. Hassan took a DNA test kit from his pocket. I thought you might say that. The test was done right there, with Hassan watching every move to ensure there was no fraud. Drops of the baby's blood, Robert's and a sample of Khalil's DNA that Hassan had brought were sent for analysis to a private laboratory in Seattle. Results in 48 hours, said Hassan. Until then, we all stay here. Robert didn't like the situation. Hassan and his armed men created an atmosphere of tension in the peaceful village. The children no longer played freely, the adults whispered worriedly, and Robert realized that their presence was bringing danger to people who had only offered them hospitality. On the first night, while Hassan slept in an improvised hammock, Robert spoke with the tribal chief. "Chief, you don't need to be involved in this. I can take Lucy and the baby far from here." "You are part of our family now," replied the chief. "We don't abandon family. But these men are dangerous. We can also be dangerous when we need to protect our children." Robert noticed a determination in the chief's eyes that wasn't a bluff. The Native Americans seemed calm, but there was a prepared tension, as if they were organizing something. On the second night, Robert discovered what it was. The chief called him for a private conversation on the riverbank. "Tomorrow, when the results arrive, there could be problems," said the chief. "What kind of problems?" "Men like him don't accept losing. Even if the test proves the child isn't Khalil's, he'll find another excuse to take her. What do you suggest? That you leave before dawn. We have a fast canoe hidden downriver. You can reach Seattle before he realizes." "And you? He could hurt you." The chief smiled. "He'll discover that the forest can be very dangerous for strangers, especially when the forest doesn't want them to find their way back." Robert understood. We're going to ensure they get lost in the forest for a few days, enough time for you to disappear." That dawn, Robert and Lucy fled, for the third time. But this time it was different. They weren't fleeing out of fear or guilt. They were fleeing to protect their daughter, to ensure she would grow up free from the shadows of the past. The canoe cut through the dark waters of the river as the Pacific Northwest dawn slowly awakened. Lucy held hope against her chest, humming a Native American lullaby she had learned in the village. Robert paddled in silence, thinking about how to explain to his daughter, when she grew up, why they started life running. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked Lucy. "We did what was necessary to protect our family. And if Hassan finds us again?" "He won't find us. We're going far away, where he'll never think to look." "Where?" Robert smiled. "Remember you talked about teaching children. There's a school in a small town in rural Vermont that needs a language teacher, and they need someone to help with administration." "You already arranged everything?" "I arranged it. New identities, clean documents, a new life away from all this." Lucy looked at her daughter, who slept peacefully in her arms. "Will Hope grow up not knowing any of this?" "She'll grow up knowing she's loved, that she has parents who did anything to protect her, and that she can be anything she wants to be." "And us?" "We'll be a normal family. Teacher, school administrator, and a daughter who will speak 5 languages before she's 10. Lucy laughed for the first time in days. "Do you think we can do it?" "I think we've already done it. Love won, Lucy. It overcame fear. It overcame threats. It overcame the past. Now all that's left is to live." When the sun had fully risen, they were far from the village, navigating towards a new life. Hope woke up and looked at the world with the curious eyes of someone seeing everything for the first time. And perhaps that was exactly it. The first day of a free life, built on true love and courageous choices. 5 years later, the small town of Pine Creek, Valley in rural Vermont, knew Robert and Lucy as the most in-love couple that had ever set foot on that land. He ran the only public school in town, transforming it into the best in the region. She taught languages to children and adults, and her classes were sought after, even by people from neighboring towns. Hope had grown up free and happy, a 5-year-old girl who spoke English, Spanish, French, and Navajo with the same naturalness. She had her mother's open smile and her father's determination, and was beloved by the entire town. On Saturdays, She helped Lucy in the community library they had created. On Sundays, she went fishing with Robert in the river that cut through the town. "Daddy, why do you and Mummy sometimes look sad when you think I'm not watching?" asked Hope one afternoon while they were organizing books in the library. Robert and Lucy exchanged glances. They knew that one day they would have to explain some things to their daughter, but they hadn't yet decided how or when. "Sometimes adults get sad remembering things that happened before you were born," replied Robert, caressing his daughters. "Hair? Bad things? Difficult things. But that brought us here to you. I like here. I like our house, our town, our friends." "We like it too," said Lucy. "Very much." It was true. In the last 5 years, Robert and Lucy had built a life they never imagined possible. They had a simple house but full of love. They had work that fulfilled them. They had true friends who respected them for who they were, not for who they had been. Robert had discovered that he preferred being the principal of a small school to being the owner of a multinational. He liked knowing each student by name, solving real education problems, seeing poor children getting scholarships to universities. It was real power, not power on paper. Lucy had discovered that teaching was her true vocation, not interpreting contracts or translating corporate documents, but opening windows to the world through languages. Her classes were magical because she transformed each language into a door to a different culture. The children learned French through stories of Paris, English through American songs, Spanish through Latin American legends. "Are you happy?" asked Hope that afternoon. "We're very happy," replied Lucy. "Why?" "Because Mrs. Thompson said you came from far away, that you left a rich life to live here. She said that's very strange." Robert laughed. "Mrs. Thompson talks too much." "But is it true?" "It's true that we came from far away. It's true that our life was different before, but it's not true that we were happier." "Were you sad?" "Daddy was very lonely," said Lucy. "He had a lot of money, but he didn't have family, didn't have love. And you, Mommy? I was lost. I didn't know who I was, didn't know where I belonged. And now you know. Now we know that we belong here, with you, in this town, with this simple and true life." Hope thought for a moment. "Do I belong here too?" "You belong wherever you want to belong," said Robert. "When you grow up, you can choose any place in the world to live. But will I always be your daughter?" "Always," they answered together. That night, after putting Hope to bed, Robert and Lucy sat on the porch of their house, watching the stars. It was a ritual they had developed over the years. Every night, a few minutes of shared silence, remembering how lucky they were. "Do you regret anything?" asked Lucy. "I regret having taken so long to find you," replied Robert. "And you?" "I regret having doubted that I deserved to be loved. And now I know that love isn't something we deserve or don't deserve. It's something that happens, that grows, that is built every day." Robert took her hand. "Lucy Regina Blake, will you marry me?" Lucy laughed. "We've been together for more than 5 years. We have a daughter, a house, a life. Aren't we married?" "Not officially. Hope will be 6 years old in 2 months. How about we have a birthday party that's also our wedding?" "You want to get married at a child's party?" "I want to get married surrounded by everything we've built together, our daughter, our friends, our community. I want it to be a celebration of everything we are." Lucy leaned in and kissed him. "Yes, I want to marry you." 2 months later, the main square of Pine Creek Valley was decorated with wildflowers and colorful banners. The entire town was present. Children ran between tables, adults chatted animatedly, and in the center of it all, Robert and Lucy exchanged vows before a justice of the peace who had become a personal friend. "I promise to love you in all the languages I know and in those I have yet to learn," said Lucy, making the whole town laugh. "I promise to build with you a life that is a perfect translation of what it means to be happy," replied Robert. Hope was beside them, dressed like a little princess, holding the rings with absolute seriousness. When the justice declared them husband and wife, she applauded louder than everyone else. "Now are we a real family?" asked Hope. "We've always been a real family," replied Robert. "Now we're a real family with signed papers." The party lasted late into the night. There was music, dancing, homemade food, and stories told by older residents. Robert and Lucy danced under the stars with Hope sleeping in Mrs. Thompson's arms, who had become the girl's adopted grandmother. "We did it," whispered Lucy in Robert's ear. "Did what?" "We managed to transform our horror story into a love story. We made the ending happy." "It's not an ending," replied Robert. "It's a beginning, the beginning of a lifetime together." "A lifetime?" "A lifetime. Until we're old folks sitting on this same porch, telling our grandchildren how Grandpa met Grandma on a Monday morning when she saved the most important meeting of his life. And how Grandma learned that not all powerful men are dangerous, that some are just frightened men looking for home." "Home," repeated Robert. "You are my home, Lucy. You and Hope are my home." "And you are my home, Robert. My home, my peace, my place in the world." That night, after the party, after the guests had left, after Hope fell asleep counting stars, Robert and Lucy stayed on the porch once more. But this time, they weren't just two fugitives who had found love. They were husband and wife, father and mother, pillars of a community that had welcomed them. "You know what impresses me most?" said Lucy. "What?" "That of all the languages I've learned, the most difficult was learning the language of love, and you were my best teacher." Robert smiled. "Funny. I was going to say the same thing. You taught me that there are translations that no dictionary can provide. That love is a language learned in the heart, not in the head. Do you think our story will inspire other people? I think our story will inspire our daughter, and that's more than enough." And that's how Robert Blake, the man who believed. He controlled all the variables in life, discovered that the best variables are the uncontrollable ones. And that's how Lucy Regina Carter, the woman who lost faith in love, discovered that true love is never